When God of War Ragnarok ended, it felt like the closing of one chapter and the quiet beginning of another. Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, the god who defied Olympus and survived the apocalypse of two pantheons, finally found something he had never known before: peace. But for a character like Kratos, peace never lasts forever. The question on every fan's mind now is simple: where does he go next? The Norse saga brought us a Kratos we had never seen before, older, wiser, broken but healing. It explored fatherhood, forgiveness, and destiny. And yet, that ending, that final mural, that prophecy, suggested that Kratos' story isn't over. In fact, it might just be changing direction. So let's talk about what could be next for the Ghost of Sparta, and what the next God of War game might look like. At the end of Ragnarok, we see Kratos standing before a mural that reveals something he never expected. Not death, not destruction, but worship. The people of the Nine Realms see him not as a monster, but as a savior. It's the first time Kratos has ever been seen as anything other than a destroyer, and in that moment, something changes. For the first time in his long, violent life, Kratos has purpose, not revenge, not survival, but leadership. The ending hints that he will stay behind in the rebuilt realms while Atreus sets out on his own journey, and that alone opens 100 possibilities for where the story could go next. Because while Atreus searches for the lost giants, Kratos may have to face what comes after being a god of war: the responsibility of being a god of peace. Now let's talk about direction. Every God of War saga has been defined by mythology. Greece, then Norse, two worlds, two cycles of destruction and redemption. The big question now is, what mythology comes next? If we follow the pattern, Kratos doesn't stay in one place for long. His story has always been about movement, from chaos to purpose, from rage to restraint. The next pantheon has to challenge him in a new way, not through brute force, but through philosophy, belief, and morality. And that's where theories begin to point toward Egyptian mythology. This isn't just random fan speculation. The developers at Santa Monica Studio have mentioned that Egypt was one of the mythologies considered before they chose the Norse world for 2018's reboot. In early concept art, we even saw hieroglyphs, pyramids, and sand-covered ruins. It's clear that Egypt has been on their radar for a long time. So what would bring Kratos to Egypt? Think about what Egypt represents: gods of life, death, order, and the afterlife. Deities like Osiris, Anubis, Ra, and Set, all tied to the balance between creation and destruction. For a man like Kratos, who has spent his entire existence battling against his own nature, Egypt could be the perfect thematic evolution. Maybe Kratos, now a god of peace, learns that balance is fragile, and that a world obsessed with order can be just as dangerous as one ruled by chaos. The Egyptian gods might see him as a threat to their perfect system, or worse, as a disruption to the natural cycle of death and rebirth. Imagine Kratos walking through the deserts of an ancient world, haunted by the whispers of spirits, guided by symbols of judgment and resurrection. Maybe he's drawn there by fate itself, or by something that even the Norns couldn't see. And what if Atreus' search for the giants somehow connects to it? Perhaps the lost giants are scattered beyond the Norse realms, hidden across mythologies, their power intertwined with the very fabric of creation. That could bring father and son together again, not as teacher and student, but as equals. But there's another possibility, one even more intriguing. What if the next God of War doesn't take Kratos to a new mythology, but rather expands the world we already know? The events of Ragnarok shook the Nine Realms to their core. Gods died, worlds burned, and the balance of power was shattered. Kratos might have to rebuild not just Asgard or Midgard, but the entire system of gods and mortals. He could become the new All-Father, not through domination, but through unity. Imagine a world where Kratos is not just a warrior, but a ruler, where he has to manage alliances between surviving gods, protect mortals from chaos, and ensure that no one ever repeats the mistakes of Odin or Zeus. That would be a new kind of war, not fought with blades and hammers, but with diplomacy, morality, and choice. It would force Kratos to face his deepest fear: what happens when he becomes the very thing he spent his life fighting? There's also the matter of prophecy. We've seen how destiny shaped Kratos and Atreus in the Norse saga, but prophecies are rarely straightforward. If Ragnarok truly marked the end of one cycle, maybe the next game begins with the start of another, one that Kratos can't avoid, no matter how much he's changed. And if Egypt or another mythology becomes the next setting, that transition could be cosmic. Maybe Kratos' new world isn't just another land, maybe it's another plane of existence entirely, the realms of the dead, or even the stars themselves. After all, Ragnarok showed that Kratos isn't just a god in one mythology, he's a force of nature, a constant in every world story. Perhaps he's destined to appear wherever gods abuse their power, wherever humanity suffers under divine rule. Maybe that's his curse, or maybe it's his redemption. And let's not forget Atreus. His journey to find the lost giants could easily become the second thread of this next saga. We might see his story unfold in parallel, his discovery of who he really is, what Loki truly means, and how his destiny connects to the balance of the world. One day, those two paths, father and son, will cross again. And when they do, it could be the emotional climax of the entire God of War story. Perhaps Atreus becomes the leader of a new pantheon. Perhaps he becomes a god of creation, while Kratos embodies the god of destruction and renewal. Together, they could represent both ends of existence, the eternal cycle of beginnings and ends that every mythology speaks of. Whatever direction Santa Monica Studio takes, one thing is certain: the next God of War game will be about legacy. Kratos has already conquered vengeance, survived grief, and learned peace. Now he must face what comes after, the burden of being remembered. Will he finally rest, or will the world need its God of War once more? Because if there's one lesson Kratos' journey has taught us, it's this: even gods can change. But destiny always finds a way. If you enjoyed this deep dive into where Kratos might go next, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more breakdowns, theories, and lore discussions from the world of gaming. And let me know in the comments, where do you think Kratos will go next? Will it be Egypt, a new pantheon, or something entirely unexpected? Because in the world of God of War, peace never lasts forever.